Now, I'd like to welcome on screen Mr. Sarthak Ranade, Managing Director, Janssen India, the Janssen Pharmaceutical Companies of Johnson & Johnson, to introduce and welcome our speakers. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Kathy. Good afternoon, all, and trust you found the proceedings of day one very interesting. In fact, yesterday we witnessed the release of the multi-regional clinical trials report. And as you're aware, this paper gives a preview of the advancements that are leading to significant changes in the global regulatory space. And actually, they serve as a conversation starter, for all the stakeholders to explore the harmonization opportunities. To gain additional insights from this report, it is my pleasure and privilege to invite Dr. Raju Titus Chacko. And I want to take some time to moment to introduce him. Professor, welcome. As you know, he's Professor of Medical Oncology, Christian Medical College, Vellore. He completed his undergrad and postgrad studies at the Christian Medical College, Vellore, and had his medical oncology training at the Royal Adelaide Hospital, South Australia. He started the medical oncology department at CMC Vellore in the year 2000. We all know the department is very well known for its teaching, service, and research. Dr. Chacko has been actively involved in research and has been the principal investigator in several clinical trials. He has several publications to his credit. He is a member of the several professional organizations, both nationally and internationally. And with this, I would like to pass on the mic to Dr. Chacko. We are eagerly waiting to hear your thoughts and insights about this report. So over to you, sir. So I think you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay,
very
great.
Clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that kind introduction. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to participate in yesterday's proceedings, so I don't know what really went on, but I know that the report on the acceptance of multi-regional clinical trials was presented and accepted at the meeting. And yeah, so I just want to, go through some of the things that were mentioned there. As we all know, India has this burden of disease, about 20% of the global disease, or probably more, We have about 1/5 of the world's population, but perhaps more of our share of the global morbidity as such. And therefore, we would certainly be a beneficiary of, getting early access to drugs and research that is available globally. Now, access to drugs is, there are hurdles to it. There has to be a buy-in from, people when you look at a disease and its management. There are, of course, regulatory hurdles. There are issues of cost. There are issues of cost effectiveness. There's an issue of physicians, doctors being experienced enough to use those drugs. And today, in the world of where research is taking us into more and more targeted therapies, there are increasing challenges there for all of us. These designer drugs means that you need to be able to measure exactly to whom you're giving this drug to. And it's only when you have a target that the targeted drug can actually work. And this also brings us to newer toxicities that happen because of these drugs, and also the companion diagnostics that go along with these drugs to complement what we have. You need to diagnose a disease, know that you have a target, and then only put it in. Now, in the space of rapidly evolving scientific knowledge, we also have to provide ourselves with a regulatory framework that allows us to quickly see these drugs when they appear wherever in the horizon around the world and be able to access it for our patients. And so we need to make sure that India as a country needs to be part of this drug development in various ways. Regional clinical trials would make that definitely possible. And we need to have a framework in which we accept these kind of regional clinical trials as that which is going to be representative of our own population, especially in this setting where we are dealing with more and more targeted therapies. We also need to have a mechanism in place by which after these drugs are used in our population, we have a very good mechanism by which we can figure out whether there are unusual toxicities or dose changes in our population, and we should be able to pick this out. Now at the moment, our post-marketing surveillance mechanism is can be better, and having a digital method of capturing this information would be fantastic. The government's digital program that is slowly unveiling itself would be a wonderful start in this mechanism. And I understand that the ICMR already has plans for mapping the health needs of several individuals in the spectrum, by which we might know what really is going on once these drugs hit the market specifically. And so that's what I would say is the way forward here. We need to get our physicians, our scientists, our investigators more and more aware of this, and help us to understand this process a bit better, so that we all can participate in this larger benefit that will accrue to our patients and our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chacko. I think you very wonderfully sort of summarized and articulated not just the barriers to access, the need for early access, but also you talked about how the regulations are changing and how as the science moves forward and we get more targeted medicines. I think we need to have a very different sort of outlook. It's this is, I think, an appropriate time for me to invite and welcome Dr. Rubina Bose. And many of us know her very well through our interactions very regularly. But I'm going to take the opportunity to formally sort of once again introduce her. Dr. Rubina Bose, as you know, is a Deputy Drugs Controller. She holds a doctorate in pharmacy, M.Pharm, B.Pharm from Jadavpur University, Calcutta. She has regulatory experience of more than 19 years. She has been working in the Central Drug Standard Control Organization in various capacities as head of division, zonal head, assistant drug controller, drug inspector. She also has 5 years of experience of working in the production of injectable drugs prior to joining the CDSCO. So maybe someone who's best placed to have this conversation along with you, Dr. Chacko. So with this, I'm going to invite once again Dr. Chacko and ask you to continue the conversation along with Dr. Rubina Bose. So over to you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you for this kind introduction, sir, and thanks for this opportunity to be part of this discussions. And sir, please wait for your discussion.
Sorry, I think you're on mute, sir. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? Sorry. Yeah. Dr. Bose, I was wondering what regulatory changes need to be made, if any, to kind of, get us to look at regional clinical trials and their acceptance in our country.
Thank you, sir. So as we are all very, I think I'm audible. Yeah.
Yes,
So
you are.
Knowing sir very well since past many years as our expert, subject expert, and knowing that also that we know where we stand and what the new NDCT rules have brought into us, and that the terminology MRCT or multi-regional clinical trials may be a new terminology, but we do have, we are already a part of it many times. And yesterday we were, while listening to some of the presentations, though I was not totally available, I could, everybody has also been introduced to the various trials which has become, as a result of which many of the drugs are available, which is a part of MRCT. And we in the NDCT rules actually define this global trial when it is the drug is under development in more than one country. So it is already in the NDCT rules. The rules already take care of the various other conditions which is being specifically mentioned in the MRCT guidelines, which ICH has framed through being initiated by Japan, the PMDA, considering the drug lag, so that it can be easily accessible. So as there was a long drug lag in Japan, and so I think, and also that the report, the MRCT report of the which was generated by OPPI, which has lot taken care of a lot of things which has been already covered in this report which has been presented, and where we stand and what we can do and what we should do. But my understanding is that the NDCT rules covers a lot part of it. In fact, it covers it talks about the ethnic variations. It talks about where we can do the local clinical trial waiver, where we can start being a part of the clinical trial after a phase 1 trial. If the drug is developed in other countries, then when we can we can start from the next phase considering the data. So reliance on data, all these are very clearly mentioned in different parts of this, like the rule 75.7 or the second schedule. It mentions everything and in which conditions and which type of disease. So why we do not, maybe we do not very specifically mention about the orphan disease or specific mutation based oncology drugs, but we do mention that what is unmet medical need in the country, such drugs which could be selected with, though we are not specifically mentioning about a very specific type of treatment. So things are there in place in the NDCT rules. Maybe we and what I understand while I when we go through this expert committees meeting, being a part of that committee, members from the DCGI office, from CDSCO, I understand that there are some clarity which is needed, which we may brought into the rules or we may put it into a guidance like China has done, or the other countries are taking up, like putting up it as a guidelines and how it should be acceptable. Because once a guideline is in place, like ICH E17, so though we are an observer of that, we have never like there is an adoption process, so we have not gone into such process. It is it's a process which we have initiated to be a part of that ICH process. So what I understand that it is important to clarify some of the things, like common standards, because MRCT, which country it is being conducted, so are standards of the clinical trial conducted. What, because there may be it's not only the ICH regions or what are the what we today call as an SRAs, stringent regulatory authorities, where it is being conducted. How do we accept the data from other countries? So a common standards specific standards, the minimum standards of clinical trial regulations and environment of a specific country to make it acceptable, and then also a common understanding of the how do we harmonize. It is not, it should not be when the particular applicant is bringing the trial applications and MRCT trial proposals. There should be an engagement from the very early stage, considering our population, such a diverse biodiversity means such a population, so it should be taken into consideration from very early stage. And also that we should uh, that like there should be a common understanding between all the countries which is a participating countries on the clinical trial procedures, the treatment, like the I would like to say the treatment process, the assessment process, because there are the protocol of treatment is also different in different countries, so the treatment process, the assessment process, and finally the reporting. So there should be a common understanding between different countries, and also it is needed to be very clear at some point of time where the amendment, at which stage we should ask for a country specific amendment. So whether we should start very early. So there are these things which we should take into consideration, and maybe go forward to publish or prepare guidances to make it more clear and adaptable. So thank you, sir. So over to you.
I was, so what I hear you saying is that perhaps when somebody has a drug, they should come in quite early into the country to involve India and the regulators in a discussion with regard to, how this drug is going to be taken forward, to understand the context in which this drug is going to be used, and also, look at country-specific requirements for this drug. I mean, when I say country-specific, I don't only mean regulatory. I also mean, actual practical ways of using this drug finally. And also to, one thing that I want to add on to what you said was, post this drug being out there in the market, a very robust mechanism of looking at how this drug behaves in the real world, as opposed to, what it does in this very nice setting of a clinical trial. What exactly does happen in the real world once this drug is out there? How do we come to know about that? Although there's a reporting of, adverse events once every so many months, etc., I was wondering whether we would have a better mechanism to do that. What would you think about that?
Thank you, sir, for the question. So I think it is also being taken care of. Like in the fifth schedule of the new drug clinical trial rules, we have the post-marketing assessment. And when we do give a permission for with the reliance on a data of other countries, like where we can do an abbreviated trial, or where we can do like the current scenario of the where we have seen in this pandemic, a lot of reliance on the data generated in other countries. Though there are some specific mention, like in the vaccines. In case of vaccines, we have very clearly mentioned about the specific countries on where the data to be generated, and then it would be acceptable. Like such data will be acceptable with the waiver of the local clinical trial in the need that it is immediately available. And we talked about the post-marketing surveillance. And the post-marketing surveillance of the different types of post-marketing surveillance, as we call it, as an observational studies or active surveillance, or a phase 4 trial, and or the pharmacovigilance and the PSO or the data submissions, all these are very clearly, I think, specified. Now it is being included in the NDCT rules. And and it is being actually used. This tool is being used for different types of, and if we see that the pharmacovigilance, not talking about directly pharmacovigilance, but to really monitor this real world evidence through the or the effectiveness in the real world scenario, we can do this structured post marketing surveillance through the companies and really find out, because this is actually what is going on with the COVID vaccines, in fact. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bose. That was wonderful talking to you about these things. Maybe it's time to close this session and go on with the next session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Raju, Titus, Chacko, and thank you, Dr. Rubina Bose, for being here and sharing.